Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, February the 9th. And welcome to our commentary back in Dallas, back in North Texas, as they like to say around here. Thank you for joining us today in our commentary. I want to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny and all of that that we witnessed Sunday afternoon, or I guess Sunday evening. Before I do, though, I want to remind you that I have a post over at the American Thinker today, Monday, talking about this whole controversy of this video that came out, the monkey video, the video that had Obama and Mrs. Obama as apes or monkeys or whatever. And here's what I wrote in my American Thinker post. Number one, I think it was foolish, very, very foolish, to do a political video showing President Obama, former President Obama, and Mrs. Obama as apes or monkeys, whatever it was. It's the kind of thing that is going to bring you some backlash. Because, look, there's a history of people having done that in the past and having that kind of cartoonish image of black people. So I think if you're making a political video, there's nothing wrong with, the Lion King and having politicians as animals. There were quite a few in that video, including a lot of elephants too, in that video. I'm sure the elephants were Republicans because there were several of them. But, if you're going to use President Obama or Mrs. Obama, what I would recommend that you do is find a different animal. I'm sure there's other animals in the jungle that you could have used. Maybe you could have used a bird or, I don't know, some other animal, maybe a horse, whatever. A donkey, there were quite a few donkeys in that video, but don't use a monkey because all you're doing when you release a video, basically presenting our first black president in a monkey image, all you're doing is giving the other side basically a free shot at coming back at you and calling it racist. I don't think the intent of the video was racist. As I say in my post, I think it was more stupid than racist. It was kind of lacking common sense to do something like that. But whatever it was, whatever the intention was, it's not a good idea to engage in that kind of depicting, if you will, our first black president as a monkey. I just think all you're doing is inviting the backlash that you're going to get, and that's just the way it goes. I mean, what can I tell you? Now, the other thing that I write in my post, and this is why I call my post, "Let's Stop Talking About Monkeys and Hitler." The other thing that I write in my post is that the Democrats, their outrage disappoints me a little bit, because these are the same Democrats who've been calling Trump and actually doing videos of Trump in far more negative ways and mean presentations. I've even seen one of Trump as a gorilla. So I mean, they've done some pretty nasty things about Trump, and they've called him Hitler. Now they're calling Gestapo ICE. They're calling Gestapo, and that he's going to cancel the elections, and he's a threat to democracy, and all this kind of stuff. That honestly, they did the same thing to George W. Bush. Those of you who remember 25 years ago, they used to do the same thing to him. But the point is that the Democrats, in their reaction, they go over the top too, because they shouldn't be throwing stones given the stuff that they've done and some of the tactics that they've used, which is why in my post I have a message for both sides. No more monkeys, especially when there's a black politician involved, and no more Hitler. No more references to Hitler and Gestapo. Let's stop that. We can disagree. You can disagree with ICE. You can disagree with Trump, but don't bring in all this garbage about Hitler and Gestapo, because it doesn't do anybody any good. Because Trump, whatever you may think of him, is not Hitler. And ICE, however you may disagree with them, they're certainly not Gestapo. So I don't know. I'm giving both sides a little message here to maybe have a little bit more sensitivity and common sense when you attack each other in these videos. I like attacks. I like political videos. I think they're fun and they're okay, but within certain boundaries. And there are certain lines we shouldn't cross. So I hope everybody gets a chance to read my post over at the American Thinker today, americanthinker.com. Well, we had a Super Bowl, if you didn't know, yesterday. The game itself was, I would say, kind of not very exciting. The final score, I think it was 29-13, but that's because I think New England scored again. But it was really not a very competitive game. And I don't know how that happens when you have two great teams and only one shows up. It's not the first time this has happened. You may remember when the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl, the two of their first three trips to the Super Bowl in the 90s. I mean, they blew up the Buffalo Bills. And the Buffalo Bills were a good team, but yet they blew them up. So stuff like that happens in sports, and it happens. That's all I can tell you. And yesterday, the team that showed up was Seattle. The team that didn't show up was New England. What would happen if these two teams played each other, let's say 20 times? Probably, you probably see a better New England team. But unfortunately, this Sunday, you didn't see it. And the result was a lopsided game. Seattle deserves the award. They won it. The quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks is a great young man, great story. So is the quarterback, by the way, for the New England Patriots. So I think there's some good images there for the NFL. The coaches, both teams, I think, presented themselves well. So I think in that respect, the NFL had a good day, even if fans like me who like a more competitive game didn't get one. It was not a competitive game. That much I can tell you. The commercials, I don't know. What can I tell you about the commercials? There are a couple that seem okay, but overall, I didn't see anything in the commercials that we're going to be talking about next year or that they're going to be studying at some marketing school. I really didn't see it. I didn't see some of the great commercials that we've had in the past. I didn't see any in this game. Now, maybe because the game was so boring and so lopsided, maybe I got away from the game a little bit and didn't watch every single commercial. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But the ones I saw, I didn't see anything that really stood out. But of course, the other big thing was the halftime show with Bad Bunny, who I didn't know much about this guy. I have to tell you, I know he sings in Spanish, but that doesn't mean that I follow him. He performs a lot of Caribbean music, the music of Cuba, I guess Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, a little bit of Venezuela, obviously the Latin music that prevails in Miami. I'll put it that way. And the rhythms were good. I thought some of the images were a little bit hard to take, especially if you have a 14-year-old daughter. But unfortunately, that's what I guess the NFL is appealing to a younger audience, from what they tell me. The one thing that I did not like about this particular halftime show was that all the songs were in Spanish. The entire show was in Spanish. Now, I understood it. Of course, I didn't have any problem understanding the lyrics. And even, as I say, I'm familiar with some of the rhythms, having, a Caribbean background. But I thought doing it in Spanish was a little bit in your face. And I think what they should have done is have a couple of songs in Spanish and then do some in English and bring in a lot of the country that must have been sitting there wondering what in the hell just happened here. What happened? Well, what happened to English? What language is this? Look, we have to be sensitive to the fact that, if you're going to do a show in Spanish, a lot of people are not going to understand it. So, I mean, I know people who I've heard on the radio today, people complaining about this and saying, I couldn't understand anything. And they're right. If you didn't speak Spanish, you couldn't. So I thought, in that respect, I thought the NFL didn't really think about the fans when they allowed it to be in Spanish. I just don't think that they should ever do that again. It's okay to want to connect with different cultures in the country, that's fine. But you don't have to do a Spanish show to connect with Hispanics if that's the objective. I mean, here's another thing too. A lot of Hispanics don't speak Spanish because they've grown up here. They were born here and grown up here, third, fourth generation. They may have a Hispanic surname, but they don't speak Spanish, and they were probably just as uncomfortable with that show as other people who were sitting there saying, "What the heck just happened on my TV set?" I don't know. I think that was a big mistake by the NFL. I hope they don't repeat that mistake in the future. A couple of quick things here. A new poll came out. We spoke about this, by the way, with George Rodriguez in our last video, if you want to check it out. But a brand new poll came out about the Texas Democrat primary, and Representative Crockett is leading State Representative Talarico by 9 points. It's like 47, 39, or 8 points. That's a big lead if that were to hold. Now, if the primary ended like that, they would go to the runoff. So, but I don't know that it will, and because I don't know if there's a third candidate. So there may have been some people undecided in that list, and that's why she didn't crack 50%. But she's leading in that poll, and she's leading in another poll. He's leading in another poll. So I guess we're going to have to see what happens. But I thought the racial breakdown of the Democrat poll was interesting. I mean, she's blowing him away, obviously, with African Americans, like by 60 points. And even with Hispanics, she's winning, which is another interesting point because you may remember she had a controversial remark about Hispanics, Hispanic men a while back. So we'll keep an eye on that race coming up here in less than a month. Quick on this day in history, on this day in 1964, so that would make it 62 years ago. The entire country, it looks like, it shut down because the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan show. And at 8:17 Eastern time, that's when Paul McCartney said, "Close your eyes and I'll kiss you," the opening lyrics of All My Loving. And that was the beginning. That was the beginning of Beatlemania. The Beatles had 6 performances that night, and the reception in the country was incredible from everything I've read. I wasn't here then. I was actually down in Cuba, and we had no idea that this was happening up here. But nevertheless, the reception in the United States was unbelievable. The ratings for that show are still some of the highest in terms of percentages, that is, some of the highest ever. So the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan show, 62 years ago today. Wow. What a night that must have been. That's one thing that, the people who were alive for that must have seen something else on television that night. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.